start with our first keynote session. May I please have Mr. Adrian Tan, President, Law Society of Singapore, wherein he'll be talking about how to hire the lawyers of the future.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for coming, and for those of you who are not living in Singapore, welcome to Singapore. So, if you're new, a few interesting facts about Singapore. Number one, Singapore is not very old. Singapore was born in 1965. So that makes Singapore about quite a middle-aged person. And next question, how big is Singapore? Singapore's population is huge. It's about 5 million. So I think when you look at Singapore, you think, oh, there's 5 million people. I wonder how big this country is. The country is about 300 square kilometers. 300 square kilometers, mostly it's a city, and then around the edges we have places for people to eat and swim and things like that. So for 300 square kilometers, you'll immediately realize that Singapore is smaller than Mumbai, for example. Singapore would easily fit into part of Mumbai. Singapore is smaller than Dhaka. Singapore is smaller than Hong Kong. Singapore is smaller than the UAE. It's easily the smallest thing you can think of. And on this little island, there are 6,000 lawyers. And they all work in about 1,000 law firms. And these 1,000 law firms, they have about 13,000 employees. They contribute about 0.5% of Singapore's GDP. So when you think of whether lawyers are hardworking, you have to look at how much the law industry produces versus your gross domestic product. So Singapore's gross domestic product, I think it's about 400 billion, and the legal industry contributes about 0.5% of that. So all this work is done by 6,000 lawyers here. And these 6,000 lawyers have a big problem, which I'm going to share with you, and which I feel may also be a problem that you can identify with. And the problem is, how do we find the next generation of 6,000 lawyers? And how do they find the next generation of 6,000 lawyers? How do we keep hiring lawyers in the future? Why is this even a problem? Well, in the law society, we've noticed a trend of declining number of lawyers. That means fewer and fewer people want to become lawyers. Many people want to study the law. Many people want to have law degrees. But when it comes to doing what you and I do, which is going to a law firm, starting at the bottom, working your way to the top, becoming a partner, young people today, they may not be so interested. That's what the data tells us. So that's what I'm going to talk about this morning. And to do that, I'm going to ask you to take a time travel with me. From now, we go back 30 years in time. That was in the early 90s. That was the time the Soviet Union, do you remember that? Soviet Union had collapsed. That was the time Nelson Mandela was just released. That was the time when Iraq invaded Kuwait, and then that began the first Gulf War. So we're going back in time. That was the early 90s when, at that time, Rajiv Gandhi was still alive. And I was starting out as a young lawyer. So I was a young lawyer. I just graduated. I was looking for a job. So I went to each and every law firm to listen to the wise words of the old lawyers. And we had a lot of great respect for them because, from an Asian society, we respect age. We want to be part of this success. And what that old lawyer told us, I still remember today. That old lawyer was talking about hiring, and he said, when hiring, we always choose a candidate who lives in public housing, who is poor, who is going to get married, and who's thinking of starting a family. Oh, that's his criteria? Why? Well, at that time, the law firms were telling us that they wanted to hire hardworking young people, very good, who would slog day and night, year after year, enslaved to their employers. And they wanted young people who had aspirations. For what? To own their own homes. To get married, to raise children, to become middle class. They wanted young people who were going to need the law firms, as these young people would be reliant on the salaries and the bonuses that the law firms would pay them to fuel their middle class dreams. So the older generation that were hiring us, they told us, look, come and work with us. If you follow our footsteps, if you work hard, then one day, maybe 20 years, 30 years' time, you will become like us. You will be a partner in a law firm. One day, the slaves will become the masters. So that was, I know, what a dream to sell us. So that was the deal. In the short term, money. In the long term, partnership. That was the deal 30 years ago. And for other people who didn't want this deal, maybe you're a young person and you have different aspirations, the employers will look at you with deep suspicion. Employers trusted only those candidates who were motivated by material rewards or the promise of partnership, because that was what the employers were programmed to offer. So that was the structure 30 years ago. And the funny thing is, 30 years ago, employers could actually say this type of thing out loud to young people. We want to enslave you, we want you to work for a long time, your conditions will be very bad, and maybe one day you will be like us. We, as young people, would have to accept it. We couldn't cancel them. We couldn't complain on social media. What was that? We couldn't do anything to rebel. We were powerless. And probably we were brainwashed, because I was brainwashed, because I liked what this old man was promising me. I liked it when he said he wanted to enslave me, and maybe one day I would become like him. I was brainwashed too. That was the deal. And so we traded our time and our talent for money and a chance to be a partner. That was the deal. In the short term, money; in the long term, partnership. Now, today, it's different, right? 30 years later, no one will accept this deal. Today, hiring is really complicated. You can't just throw money at people to perform tasks. You can't just say, do this and get this. Because today, employment is no longer transactional. We made this mistake in Singapore, and that's why I'm here to tell you not to make this mistake yourselves. Because we, the older employers, kept thinking that hiring is transactional, and that's why we see an attrition in the number of young people willing to join our law firms. And what I'm here to tell you today is how to hire that sort of talent and attract them and make them work for you. But first, why did this change of attitude come about? Well, in one word, it's technology. Technology is a good answer to every question that people ask you. Why is politics like that today? Technology. Why is sports like that? Technology. Why are young people so different from us? Technology. Just remember this word, go home. If your spouse asks you why you came in late tonight, just say technology. Anyway, but it is the truth. In the past, look, fully qualified lawyers who spent years studying and more years passing the bar, we were employed to do full-time research. And what does research mean in the old days? Well, we would have to use these things called hard copy books, books that were printed on paper. And we would then do things like noting up. I'm not sure if young people today know what noting up is. But in my time, noting up means to find a case and see whether it's been applied year after year, whether it's been overruled or followed. And to do that, the young people had to go to a place that had lots of these objects called books, and that place was called a library. Now, today we all laugh, wow, when was the last time we went to a library? But in the old days, lawyers would go to the library very regularly to look in books, to note up this case, this judge said this, and then run to another digest. I don't know whether you remember what a digest is, but we used to have these things called digests every year, a summary of cases, and then see whether that case was followed or overruled. We would also have things like case citators, very many specialized publications. And the people who made a lot of money from us was Lexus. Hello. So for each case, one case would take 1 hour just to note up, not even to understand it, just to know whether it's been followed, overruled, applied. That's one case. And if you have a hearing, you would have to maybe have 10 cases or 20 cases. A lawyer would spend many hours just noting up these cases. You spend 4 years, 5 years getting your degree, being allowed to practice, and then you become this sort of research monkey. That's what we were called, research monkey. You go into the library, the jungle of the library, and you bring back all these little fruits. You're a research monkey. And there were many other tasks that were just as time-consuming, unpleasant, and unfulfilling. Even a simple thing like writing a letter would be very laborious. The lawyer would dictate the letter to the secretary. I'm not sure if you remember, but 30 years ago, lawyers would have this skill of dictation. That means the lawyer would speak, and the secretary would write in a little notebook in a style called shorthand. Shorthand, what is that? If you tell young people today, they'll assume you're handicapped. But no, shorthand is just a form of quick writing. And then the secretary would go to a typewriter and bang out the letter and then show it to you as a draft. And then the lawyer would have one opportunity to amend or correct that letter. You would use a pen and you make corrections and you give it to your secretary, and then your secretary would type out the final version using a piece of paper called a carbon copy, and then give it to the lawyer, and the lawyer would have to sign it. And woe betide any lawyer who wants to amend that letter one more time. If your secretary gives you the final version of the letter and you see, oh, there is a mistake here, you feel like you're going to amend it, but you'll look at your secretary's eye, and she will look at you, and you'll feel the force of her gaze, and you'll say, never mind, I'll use my pen to amend it, and I'll sign it, and it'll go out. So those were the days where we had to do that just for one letter. Today you can amend a letter dozens of times. No problem at all. But it was really tough 30 years ago. Well, when at that time, I remember there was 30 years ago when I had a good friend, and she was hired because she was very good at one skill. And what was that? It was called proofreading. Proofreading. So she was in the corporate department, and her partner was so impressed with her because she could spot typographical errors, spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, where the comma is placed after a space, where the margins are not aligned. And because of that, she was hired. So today, her skills would be no use, because today Microsoft Word can do the same thing flawlessly and quickly. And Microsoft Word doesn't even have a law degree. But 30 years ago, it was like that. Today, thanks to online services, we can do all these things, noting up, research, proofreading, not even in the office. We can do it from the comfort of our own home, or in a bus, or in a train. So what was laborious and soul-destroying has become quick and delightful because it's so handy. And the best part is all these skills can be done by a non-lawyer. So the point really is that lawyers today have been liberated from such non-lawyerly activity thanks to technology. And now, since we have fewer mundane tasks, we have stopped looking for mundane lawyers. That's it. No more boring lawyers. There's no use case for boring lawyers. Those are the lawyers of the past. Lawyers of the future are what we need. So what are lawyers of the future? Well, they're not research monkeys. They don't live in the library. They won't be very good at proofreading. They won't be even loyal to you. The lawyer of the future is someone who knows the law and who can apply it well. All right? The lawyer of the future has to contribute ideas and generate leads and raise your brand. That's the lawyer of the future. So, okay, what's the problem with that? Well, how do we attract this type of lawyer? Can we do it the old way? Can we do it with the deal, the famous deal 30 years ago, in short-term, money, in long-term, partnership? Can this attract the lawyer of the future? Well, it can't. We tried that in Singapore. Because we're very slow. When you're a partner in a law firm, you feel that you know everything. So when you hire young people, you think, it worked for me in the past, so I will do the same thing today. Even though my needs have changed, my use case has changed, I'm still using the old way of trying to attract new talent. And we failed, and we failed, and we failed. So number of lawyers going to law firms kept going down. Then we realized the lawyer of the future wants different things. Self-actualization, social improvement, personal experience, changing the world. Oh, and one more thing, money. Don't think that it's so different. Money is also important. So it's a whole package, all right? Now we have to offer the whole package, which means that law firms have to do one thing that we hate to do: invest. We hate to invest. When we were lawyers growing up to be law firm partners, we thought that this is just a gravy train. When I become a partner, I will let all my associates and all my legal assistants work, and there'll be profit every year, and I'll take this profit and buy a new car, I'll buy a new house. I don't have to invest in this. But today, law firm partners have to do this new thing called invest. What do you have to invest in? Well, okay, the lawyer of the future wants more training. So, the law firm of the future must invest in training courses, in training conferences, in training books, things like that. Number two, the lawyer of the future wants a chance to make an impact in society. Even just from joining you straight off, these lawyers of the future want a chance to improve society and make a difference. So that means the law firm of the future must invest in cases which may not be lucrative, but which are for the public good, like pro bono cases. We have to take on pro bono cases just to inspire the young lawyers, give them a chance to do something, and let them feel that they're actually making a difference. And there's one more big thing that law firms have to make and have to invest in. This is what we experience in Singapore. I suppose it's the same for you. And the big thing we have to invest in is, I can't even bring myself to say it, but the big thing that we have to invest in is called working from home. Oh, there I've said it. Now I have to wash my mouth. But what is this thing? Working from home? I remember a very senior lawyer speaking to me. He's in his 70s. He was also a president of the Law Society. He said, "Do you know today I had to do a very strange thing?" I said, "What did you have to do, sir?" He said, "I had to ask a young lawyer whether she will be in the office tomorrow. And tomorrow is a work day. when I was a young lawyer, my boss would assume that I would be in the office not just on weekdays, but every time that he was in the office, I would be there. I would have to be in the office before my boss came, and I would only leave the office after my boss left. And that was how I was trained. Imagine in the old days if my boss had to ask me, will you be in the office tomorrow? But today, I'm in my 70s, I've accomplished so much, and I have to ask this 20-year-old lawyer, do you think you can come in the office tomorrow? And the answer might be, oh, let me check. Oh, tomorrow I think I have to do some errands, my dry cleaning, my child is in childcare, blah, 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 blah. So the world is different. Since the pandemic, we've seen a tussle between employers and employees. Employers want everybody to return to the office the old way. We were comfortable with that. We spend so much money renting this office, doing it up so beautifully, giving you a space here, giving you a workstation, giving you a little tea corner. Please come and use it. Come back. And the employees are saying, no, 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 no. We want a flexible or hybrid system. We want to choose whether to work from home or work from the office, and we want to make up our minds as we feel like it. Maybe today we feel like working from home. You must give us that. Oh, what a tussle, what a war. Who is going to win this battle between employers and employees? We don't have to look at ourselves. We can look at someone who is more powerful than any law firm partner. His name is Elon Musk. So Elon Musk, in case you don't know, is the world's richest man. He has everything. He has electric cars. He has got a rocket ship to go to outer space. He has got more money than every human being in history. How can this man fail? So this man, Elon Musk, apparently he bought a company. It's called Twitter. And the first thing he said to the company was, remote work is no longer allowed. He ordered employees to come to the office and work a minimum of 40 hours a week. All right? Before the pandemic, there would be nothing controversial. The boss is telling you, please work in the office for 40 hours a week. That means 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. What's the big deal? Yeah. But no, when Elon Musk said this, everybody was so upset with him. All the employees were saying, I'm going to quit. How dare you tell me to come to the office and work 5 days a week? What sort of cruel torture is this? I cannot take it, I will leave. There was a huge backlash, a tsunami of resignations followed. Eventually, only about 12% of Twitter's workforce remained, and their offices around the world had to be shut. It wasn't just because of his work from home policy. He also told them, you have to work hardcore. You have to be committed to the company. And for that terrible sin of saying you have to be committed to the company, you have to come to the office, everybody quit. Now, it was also his personality, which I must admit, I'm not a fan of Elon Musk. But he has got more achievements and more money than me. And if he cannot make his people work from the office, I have no hope for myself. So we have to learn from this example. We have to avoid losing talent. We have to start learning how to attract talent. Whatever the Twitter employees experience is what the lawyers of the future will also experience if you tell them, come to the office, work in the office, and so on. I think if you're very lucky, you get young lawyers who are willing to do that. But by and large, what we've found is that the pandemic has changed everyone. That's the new normal. So we have to adjust ourselves. And we have to do that by investing. What do we invest in? We have to invest in good technology for work from home, right? We have to upgrade our servers. We have to get some new apps to make it easier. We have to get some new apps to monitor our employees to make sure that they are really working from home. We have to accept also that the lawyer of the future is not going to be the hardcore, hard-charging person that you were. not the same person. The lawyer of the future wants something called a balance between office life and social life. If you ask the lawyer of the future to sacrifice social life for money, some of them will say yes, and some of them will do it for a year or two. But eventually the lawyer of the future will say, it's too much, I can't sacrifice my social life forever, and I will leave you for greener and more sociable pastures. So, and that brings me to my final point of this talk, and that's about partnership. And it goes like this. The lawyer of the future will be less interested in the promise of partnership in the long term. 20 years, 30 years' time, you will be partner, all this will be yours. In the old days, that would make my heart go very fast. But nowadays, the young lawyers will say, 30 years, 20 years, I've only been alive for that period of time. Are you going to promise me something like that in the next lifetime? I'm not very interested. The lawyer of the future has so many options today that we never had. Today, if you have a law degree, if you're a qualified lawyer, you can do many things. You can work for the financial institutions. You can work for technology startups. You can work for some unicorn. And how is a boring old law firm supposed to compete with all that? By saying in 30 years' time, you can be a partner? No. That's why in hiring the lawyer of the future, you should not talk about anything with a 5 to 10 year horizon. No point. There's no point. The focus is what you can do for them today. And this is the final part. I'm going to leave you with this sentence. The focus has to be on what you can do for them today. And there is personal development, social impact, and challenging work. You have to offer them these three things. And it has to be carried out in an office setting or in a home setting. Oh, and by the way, money as well. So you have to offer them good money, personal development, social impact, and challenging work from an office or home environment. That, my friends, is the recipe for how to hire the lawyer of the future. Thank you very much.